I don't know how to play 40k. Let's change that today. Hey there my friends, welcome to the first part of how to play Warhammer 40,000. Thanks, Cat. I've had many people in my comments asking if I intend to play the game with my models, and I absolutely do. So I figured now is as good a time as any to have a look through the core rules. The core rules are available for free to anyone. I have a link to it in my description down below, by the way, should you be interested. But what we are going to do today, I am going to read through the core rules, or at least the first part of it. And in addition, at the same time, I am sat next to my trusty table, so where in any new rules we discover, we can test them out right here and right now with my miniatures. So hopefully being able to see it happen right in front of us will help solidify it in our brains. Very good. So my hope is that by the end of this series, I will know how to play 40k, fellow newbies will know how to play 40k, and with the more experienced folks watching, you'll be able to give tips in the comments if we misunderstand something or something like that. Your knowledge and skills are appreciated. Alright, and with that, let's get cracking, shall we? Alright, beginning right at the top, the core concepts. This section introduces various rules terms that you will find throughout the core rules and beyond. These key concepts form the basis of the Warhammer 40,000 rules and are essential for every kind of battle. Alright, pretty important then. First, to play a game of Warhammer 40,000, I'm just going to refer to it as 40k, you must first select a mission. The mission will tell you how to muster your armies, create your battlefield, and deploy your forces on the tabletop. It will also tell you any special rules that apply to the battle, and, most importantly, what you need to do to win. Okay, fair, so it's not always just a random free-for-all then, which doesn't really come as a surprise to me. That would get old in a hurry, after all. Now we'll find out more about missions later, so that'll be cool. Armies. Each player in a game of 40k commands an army of Citadel miniatures, hereafter referred to as models. What? This is a model? Okay, I guess they're just being thorough. I can't criticize for that, really, but it is fun. The mission you have selected will guide you as to how big your army should be. Then it makes a little clarification here that an army is all of the models under your command. Okay, fair, thorough, can't argue with that. Units. Oh, I know this. Models move and fight in units. A unit can have one or more models from a single datasheet. I'm going to guess that a datasheet is like a profile or something for the models. Models and units from the same army are said to be friendly in relation to each other. Models and units from your opponent's army are referred to as enemy models and units. If a rule affects models or units without specifying that they are friendly or enemy, that rule affects all models or all units, regardless of whose army they are in. So a unit is one or more models from the same datasheet. Friendly models and units are all models and units from the same army, and enemy models and units are all models and units from the opponent's army. Okay, fairs. Again, stuff that's fairly common sense, but thoroughness. Right, cool. Datasheets. The rules you will need to use your models in-game are presented on datasheets. Each unit has a datasheet. You will need the datasheets for all the units from your army. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, we could go full Imperial Guard on this and say, I was given this by a tech priest, no idea what it does, they didn't tell me, let's just throw it at the problem and see what happens. But I guess with little miniatures it doesn't quite work that way. Keywords. All datasheets have a list of keywords, separated into faction keywords and other keywords. Faction keywords can be used to help you decide which models to include in your army, but otherwise both sets of keywords are functionally the same. In either case, keywords appear in keyword bold. Keywords are sometimes linked to, or tagged by, a rule. For example, a rule might say that it applies to infantry units. This means it only applies to units that have the infantry keyword on their datasheet. The pluralization or otherwise of keywords does not affect which unit the rules in question applies to. Okay, cool, so some fancy psycho nonsense that may only affect infantry, for instance. Anything that has infantry in its datasheet? Alright. Makes sense. I have me some Space Marine data sheets. Haven't actually looked at them yet. Ah, yes. Right, so the first one on the list is this Primaris Captain. There's a lot of numbers and words here. Ah, but look, a keyword. Infantry. Alright, cool. That makes sense, because he's standing on his footsies. I'm not going to bother trying to guess, because the core rules will tell us what it means. Alright then, unit coherency. And I'm going to guess that does not mean how well they speak. A unit that contains more than one model must be set up and end any kind of move as a single group, with all of its models within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of at least one other model from that unit. While a unit has 7 or more models, all of its models must instead be set up and end any kind of movement within 2 inches horizontally and 5 inches vertically of at least 2 other models from that unit. This is called unit coherency. Oh, okay, fair enough. Let's have a look at that. So we have ourselves this here unit of 6 Space Marines. So stood like this, they are very clearly in coherency. I have my handy dandy tiny tape measure right here. So they have to be within 2 inches of at least one other model, which all of these guys are. So they had to be within 2 inches horizontally of any single model. So that would arguably mean they could be in a conga line akin to this. So long as they remain within 2 inches of each other, all is well. 2 inches, easy, within 2 inches. Alright, cool. How far does that stretch out? Let's have a wee look. Alright, cool, so they can be spread out, as far as I can tell, this far from each other. The one thing I don't know yet is from what point on the base is it measured. If I were to measure from this side of the base, do I have to measure to the same side of the base on the other model? Or is it simply the 2 closest points? I'm going to assume, given their thoroughness, that's going to be covered later on in the core rules. However, it says if there are 7 or more, they have to be within 2 inches horizontally of 2 models. So Joe here has just come back from the gym, or whatever Space Marines do, and now suddenly everything's absolutely messed up. They've got to make sure they're within 2 inches of at least 2 other models. Something like this. Yes, 2 inches, yep. You're not within 2 inches, let's move you there. So more like that then. They can't do a straight up conga line no more. There's simply too many people for this conga line. Don't point that at your sergeant, that's a really dumb idea. And vertically, it said 5 inches, so that's, it's quite substantially taller. That's, like this. That's like the height of 3 of these Space Marines. Damn. Alright, very cool. If for any reason a model cannot be set up in unit coherency, that model is destroyed. Damn, that seems a bit harsh. If a unit cannot end a move in unit coherency, it cannot make that move, and its models are returned to their previous positions. At the end of every turn, each player must remove models, one at a time, from any of the units from their armies that are no longer in unit coherency, until only a single group of models from each of those units remains in play and in unit coherency. Models removed in this way count as having been destroyed, but they never trigger any rules that apply when a model is destroyed. Damn, that seems really harsh to me. It's like that scene from A Bug's Life, when the leaf drops into the line and suddenly the ant's just like, what do I do? So it suggests that the model that loses unit coherency just suffers a cardiac arrest and dies immediately. I know it's game logic, has to kind of do things like that, but still. Hello, buddy. Or if, for instance, one model just sees something interesting on the floor, just bends to pick it up, the rest of the unit have already marched on, and he's like, no, wake up! Anywho, in summary, unit coherency within 2 inches horizontally, 5 inches vertically of one other model of the same unit, if it's units of 2 to 6 models, 2 other models from the same unit, if they're in units of 7 plus models. And at the end of every turn, if a unit is not in unit coherency, the controlling player must remove models until that unit is in unit coherency again. I see you lurking. I'd say it's a lot to remember. It's kind of straightforward, but at the same time, it is definitely a lot to think about already. But still, cool beans. We now know that models get lonely and they must stick together. Now, engagement range. Engagement range represents the zone of threat that models present to their enemies. While a model is within 1 inch horizontally and 5 inches vertically of an enemy model, those models and their units are within engagement range of each other. Okay, so if even a single model of a unit is within engagement range of an enemy, then suddenly the entire unit just loses their shit. Bob, leave them alone! Models cannot be set up or end a normal, advance, or fall back move, whatever they are, within engagement range of any enemy models. If for any reason a model cannot meet this condition, that model is destroyed. Damn. Man, I knew 40k was brutal, but damn, it's not letting anything slide. Okay, so in summary, engagement range is within 1 inch horizontally and 5 inches vertically. Models cannot be set up or end a normal, advance, or fallback move within engagement range of any enemy models. Okay, cool. So I guess unless they are specifically attacking them, I would assume, they can't get any closer to them than an inch. Alright, fair enough. Battlefield. Battles of Warhammer 40k are fought on rectangular battlefields. Okay. This can be any surface upon which the models can stand. A dining table, for example, or the floor. I have a dining table. Your mission will guide you as to the size of battlefield required. Rectangular battlefields, it's almost as if they know 40k players are going to play it on a table. What would 40k commanders do if they were fighting in a round, like, crater or something? It's like, no, can't fight it. Terrain features. The scenery on a battlefield can be represented by models from the Warhammer 40k range. These models are called called terrain features to differentiate them from the models that make up an army. Terrain features are set up on the battlefield before the battle begins. Or we could set them up during the battle just to say that we're in the realm of chaos or something. Yeah. Unless the mission you are playing instructs you otherwise, you should feel free to create an exciting battlefield using any terrain features from your collection. Incidentally, I have a very exciting battlefield right now called Open Field, measuring distances. Distances in 40k are measured in inches. Yes, indeed, got a tape measure for it. You can measure distances whenever you wish. So if I'm losing a battle, I could stall indefinitely by saying I just want to measure things. When measuring the distance between models, measure between the closest points of the bases of the models you're measuring to and from. There you go, so the closest points. I was right. If a model does not have a base, measure to the closest point of any part of that model instead. If a rule says it applies within a certain distance, it applies at any distance but is not more than the specified distance. For example, within 1 inch means any distance that is not more than 1 inch away. Can't argue with that. It's certainly very thorough, this. There's a hint and tip here. Wobbly models. Sometimes you may find that a particular terrain feature makes it hard for you to place a model exactly where you want to. If you delicately balance a model in place, it is very likely to fall as soon as someone nudges the table, leaving your painted model damaged or even broken. In cases like this, provided it is still physically possible to place the model in the desired location, you may find it helps to leave a model in a safer position, provided both players agree and know its actual location, because in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only safety. If, later on, an enemy model is shooting the model, you will have to hold it back in place so that visibility can be determined. Okay, fair enough. Well, at least they're being thorough about that as well. Good. Determining visibility. Warhammer 40k uses true line of sight to determine visibility between models. To check this, get a model's perspective view by looking from behind the observing model. For the purposes of determining visibility, an observing model can see through other models in its unit, and a model's base is also part of that model. Oh man, so if a bit of the base is just sticking out, they can shoot the base, and it's like shooting their foot off. That's harsh. But cool, so in order to see what's going on, you gotta proper get down and proper look. That's cool, I like that. Model visible. If any part of another model can be seen from any part of the observing model, that other model is visible to the observing model. Okay, so, to summarize, if it can be seen, it can be seen. Unit visible. If one or more models in a unit is visible to the observing model, then that model's unit is visible to the observing model. So, if it can be seen, it can be seen. Model fully visible. If every part of another model that is facing the observing model can be seen from any part of the observing model, then that other model is said to be fully visible to the observing model, i.e., the observing model has line of sight to all parts of the other model that are facing it, without any other models or terrain features blocking visibility to any of those parts. So if it can be really seen, it can be really seen. Oh man, but it gets worse. Unit fully visible. If every model in a unit is fully visible to an observing model, then that unit is fully visible to that observing model. For the purposes of determining if an enemy unit is fully visible, an observing model can see through other models in the unit it is observing. So, if they can all be really seen, they can all be really seen. Okay, all joking aside, I'm sure there are probably rules within the game that actually utilize this. It's just fun to rip the shit out of it. So, in summary, model visible. If any part of a model can be seen, it is visible. Unit visible. If any model in a unit is visible, that model's unit is visible. Model fully visible. If every facing part of a model can be seen, it is fully visible. And unit fully visible. If every model in a unit is fully visible, that unit is fully visible. And now we have a cat. Hello. Dice. In order to fight a battle, you will require some 6-sided dice, often abbreviated to D6. My inner Dungeons & Dragons is tingling. Some rules refer to 2d6, 3d6, and so on. In such cases, roll that many d6 and add the results together. The great thing about being a D&D player is that I do have a few dice. Now, I have heard on the internet countless times over the years about how some factions in particular, like Orcs, Nids, Imperial Guard, and whatnot, you are throwing fistfuls of dice, which is very appealing. Probably the downside of being Space Marines. Not as many dice. But ah well, the sacrifices we make, eh? If a rule requires you to roll a d3, roll a d6 and halve the result, rounding up to a whole number, to get the d3 result, as shown below. Yeah, so 1 or 2 is 1, a 3 or 4 is 2, and a 5 or 6 is 3. Okay, cool, easy. If a rule requires a dice roll of, for example, 3 or more, this is often abbreviated to 3+. Where several consecutive dice results are relevant to a rule, these are often shown as a range. For instance, 1 to 3. Okay, fair. Rerolls. Some rules allow you to re-roll a dice roll, which means you get to roll some or all of the dice again. Oh shit! If a rule allows you to re-roll a dice roll that was made by adding several dice together, for example 2d6, 3d6, etc., then, unless otherwise stated, you must re-roll all of those dice again. You can never re-roll a dice more than once, and re-rolls happen before modifiers, if any, are applied. Now my D&D senses are really tingling. Rules that refer to the value of an unmodified dice roll are referring to the dice result after any re-rolls, but before any modifiers are applied. Okay, fairs. So, unmodified dice is the result after re-rolls, but before any modifiers. A dice can never be re-rolled more than once. You must re-roll all dice if several need adding together, like 2d6, and re-rolls are applied before any modifiers. Alright, cool. So I guess if you had some modifier like, I don't know, +4, I don't even know if +4 is a thing, but you'd roll your dice, see you have a 1, and if you had a chance to re-roll it, you'd do that first, before adding +4. Then you'd roll like a 4 or something. Then suddenly your results go from 5 to 8. I technically did all the modifiers after, in my head. Shut up. Roll-offs. Some rules instruct players to roll off. To do so, both players roll 1d6. Whoever scores highest wins the roll-off. If there is a tie for the highest roll off again. Neither player is allowed to re-roll or modify any of the d6 when making a roll-off. Yeah, just bust out my pocket. By the way, Bob, I've got a +100 to my roll-offs. Sequencing. While playing Warhammer 40k, you'll occasionally find that 2 or more rules are to be resolved at the same time. If this occurs during the battle, the player whose turn it is chooses the order. Okay, that makes sense. If this occurs before or after the battle, or at the start or end of a battle round, the players roll off, and the winner decides the order in which those rules are resolved. Okay, cool. Again, A for thoroughness. And the hints and tips on dice rolling, skimming this, it just looks like good practice for dice rolling. Like, you know, don't hide your rolls, tell your opponent what you're rolling for. Do it in a dice tray. I have one of those. Oh, this bit might be of interest though. If a dice does not lie flat on your battlefield after it has been thrown, it is called a cocked dice. Some players use a house rule that unless a dice is flat after it has been rolled, or unless you can balance another dice on top of a cocked dice without it sliding off, it must be rolled again. It is more common for players to roll the dice again only if they can't be sure of the result. In any case, rolling a cocked dice again doesn't count as having re-rolled that dice. Okay, fair, so just keep going until you've got clear, undisputable result. Again, A for thoroughness. Right, here we go. The meat and potatoes, if you would. The battle round. Minute by bloody minute the battle grinds on, from the opening volleys of shots through furious offensives and desperate counterattacks into the last dying moments, when victory hangs by a thread. Cool. Warhammer 40k is played in a series of battle rounds. In each battle round, both players have a turn. Nice. Fair. I like it. The same player always takes the first turn in each battle round. The mission you are playing will tell you which player this is. But how do the missions know who the players are? Each turn consists of a series of phases, which must be resolved in the following order. Command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, and fight phase. Right. Command phase, both players muster strategic resources, then you test your unit's battle readiness. Movement phase, your units maneuver across the battlefield, and reinforcements enter the fray. Shooting phase, your units fire their ranged weapons at the foe. Charge phase, your units charge forward to battle at close quarters. And fight phase, both players' units pile in and attack with melee weapons. Once a player's turn has ended, their opponent then starts their turn. Once both players have completed a turn, the battle round has been completed and the next one begins, and so on until the battle ends. Okay, again, so like D&D. Everyone gets a turn, and then that's the round. Nice. Right then, so, how about we start at the top? Command phase. Commanders gauge the flow of the battle, consolidating their objectives before making alterations to their battle plans and devising new tactics and strategies with which to defeat the foe. Right, so I think I read here first. Your command phase is split into 2 steps. In the first, both players gain 1 command point, or CP, and you resolve any other command phase rules. In the second, you test to see if any of your units are battle-shocked. I'm going to guess battle-shocked is like if something crazy's happened and... morale. It's morale, I'm going to guess. Gaining command points. Outside of the CP players gain at the start of the command phase, each player can only gain a total of 1 CP per battle round, regardless of the source. Okay, so everyone gains 1 CP at the start of this phase, and there are other ways to gain CP, so they could gain 2 a turn, I suppose? We'll see later in the rules, I suppose. 1. Command. At the start of your command phase, before doing anything else, both players gain 1 CP. It's like pocket money of the 41st millennium. Command points are a strategic resource that you can spend during the battle to use stratagems. And we'll find out more about stratagems later on. Okay, cool, so I'm gonna guess maybe artillery, things to bolster your lads, you know, fairs. We shall see. Then, if you have any other rules that need to be resolved in the command phase, you do so now before progressing to the battle shock step. Okay, so in summary, both players receive a command point, and you resolve any other rules that occur in the command phase. Oh, okay, fair enough. Everyone gets a command point, and then do you use the stratagems right now? From the way it says it, you can spend it during the battle. Okay, so it seems you can use stratagems at any time in the battle. But this is when you get the command points. And other rules. Okay. 2. Battle shock. In this step, you must take a battle shock test for each of your units on the battlefield that is below half strength. To do so, roll 2d6. If the result is greater than or equal to the best leadership characteristic in that unit, the test is passed. Otherwise, the test is failed, and until the start of your next command phase, that unit is battle-shocked. That sounds pretty grim. While a unit is battle-shocked, the objective control characteristics of all its models is 0. If it falls back, you must take a desperate escape test for every model in that unit, and its controlling player cannot use stratagems to affect that unit. This all sounds pretty grim. Once you have taken battle shock tests for all of your units that require them, your command phase ends, and you progress to your movement phase. It's not been explained yet, but I'm going to assume that objective control characteristic measures their ability to control objectives. Like, you know, taking and holding a point or something. I'm going to guess that while they're at 0, they're completely overridden by any enemy model nearby. Now, I'm going to assume that a desperate escape test is not a good thing to have to do. And you can't use stratagems. Okay, so you don't want to be battle-shocked, basically. So, in summary, take a battle shock test for each unit from your army on the battlefield that is below half strength. I'm going to go with a guess that if you have a unit of like 10 models, if you've got, well, it says less, yeah, below half, so 4 or less, then I guess it would have to do it. That's my guess anyway, unless there's more to it. Roll 2d6. If the result is greater than or equal to the unit's leadership, the test is passed. Otherwise, the unit is battle-shocked until the start of your next command phase. So the whole turn. Battle-shocked units have an OC of 0, and their controlling player cannot use stratagems to affect them, and they must take desperate escape tests if they fall back. Righto. Here we go. Starting strength. The number of models a unit contains when it is added to your army is known as its starting strength. Excellent. So if you have a unit of 10 models, then 10 is the starting strength. Okay. Below half strength. Some rules will refer to a unit being below half strength. If a unit has a starting strength of 1, then it is said to be below half strength when its remaining number of wounds is less than half of its wounds characteristic. Okay, cool. So, yeah, 'cause obviously you can't cut a model in half and say, yo, look, he's less than half his battle strength because he's got less than half of the one model. For any other unit, while the number of models in that unit is less than half of its starting strength, that unit is said to be below half strength. Okay. Destroyed. Throughout a battle, models will suffer damage and be destroyed. When a model is destroyed, it is removed from the battlefield. When every model in a unit has been destroyed, that unit is destroyed. How many more times can we say destroyed? Attached units, some character units, have the leader ability, which lets them merge with other units, then known as bodyguard units, to form an attached unit. The starting strength of an attached unit is equal to the combined starting strengths of all its units. Alright, cool, so if I had a unit of 10 models and then added like, a captain to it or something, then their starting strength is 11, 10 plus 1. Logical. If either the leader unit or the bodyguard unit in an attached unit is destroyed, the starting strength of the remaining unit is changed to be equal to its original starting strength. Okay, fair. You lose one, then you lose the starting strength benefit. Yep, that makes sense. There's an example there, but I've basically already given that example. For the purposes of rules that are triggered when a unit is destroyed, such rules are still triggered when one of the individual units that make up an attached unit is destroyed. Okay, cool. So if the leader is killed, then that's technically a unit destroyed, even though the rest of the attached unit is still alive. Cool. Movement phase, here we go. The ground shakes to the tread of marching feet and the growl of engines as armies advance across the battlefield and vie for advantageous positions. Alright, let's dig into this puppy. Your movement phase is split into 2 steps. First, you can move your units, then you can set up reinforcements. And before we continue, what the hell is that? I mean, it's obviously a cherub, but what? Who made that? That is nightmare fuel. I thought they were meant to look angelic. What the? Alright, move units. Start your movement phase by selecting one unit from your army that is on the battlefield to move. Unless that unit is within engagement range of any enemy models, it can make a normal move, or advance, or remain stationary. If that unit is within engagement range of any enemy models, it can either remain stationary or fall back. Okay, cool. We really don't like being near enemy models. After you have finished moving that unit, select another unit from your army to move and so on, until you have done so with all your units. Once you have moved all your units, progress to the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Each time you move a unit, you can move any of its models you choose to. The controlling player chooses the order in which to move their models. Whenever you move a model, you can pivot it and or change its position on the battlefield along any path. But no part of its base can be moved across an enemy model or cross the edge of the battlefield. It can be moved over friendly models as if they were not there if you wish, but it cannot end its move on top of another model. So we can't have mounting Space Marines. Tragic. The only exception to this is when moving monster or vehicle models. Such models cannot be moved over other friendly monster or vehicle models and must be moved around them instead. The distance a model moves is measured using the part of its base that moves furthest along its path. Okay. If a model does not have a base, measure using whichever part of that model moves the furthest. A part of surely the whole thing moves with it. Okay, that was some weird wording, but fair enough. So, in summary, when a unit moves, it can make a normal move, advance, or remain stationary. Units that are within engagement range of any enemy models can only fall back or remain stationary. Right, cool. And now it looks like we're actually going to learn what these things are. Remain stationary. What is this going to be? It's a mystery. If a unit remains stationary, none of its models can be moved for the rest of the phase. That's such a weird way of saying they don't move. Normal moves. When a unit makes a normal move, each model in that unit can move a distance in inches less than or equal to its move, or M characteristic. But no model can be moved within engagement range of any enemy models. No engagement range. So a normal move, models move up to M inches and never within engagement range of any enemy models. So let's have a look at the datasheet. The M of my intercessor squad is 6 inches. Let's have a look, shall we? Okay, cool, so these guys can move 6 inches. Very easy, just measure and move. I like it. Measure and move. Measure and move. Measure and move. You can see I'm doing it super precise. Measure and move. Measure and move. And they must always remain within 2 inches of another model, or yes, no, in this case 2 models, because there's 7 of them. Excellent. Kind of obvious, I know, but I'm being as thorough as they are. Alright, advance moves. When a unit advances, make an advance roll for that unit by rolling a d6. Add the result in inches to the move characteristic of each model in that unit until the end of the phase. Each model in that unit can then make an advance move by moving a distance in inches less than or equal to this total. But no model can be moved within engagement range of enemy models. Remember that, kids. A unit cannot shoot or declare a charge in the same turn that it advanced. Like dashing in D&D, for those in the know. So, in summary, an advanced move, models can move up to their movement plus a d6. They can't move within engagement range of any enemy models. And units that advance cannot shoot or charge this turn. Alright, cool. So, sacrificing offensive power for mobility, basically. Let's check it out. Hey, a Nurgle invasion, just in time for the demonstration. So, let us say these guys want to move over here, but it is further than 6 inches. I don't know, let's say it's like 8 inches or something. Yes, you roll a single d6 for the entire units of models. So, let's have a look-see. 2, that's perfect. That would mean it's their movement of 6 plus 2, which is 8. Isn't that exciting, Merlin? Right, so with that roll, rather than 6 inches, they can now move 8 inches. Ho-ho. So, 8 inches, 8 inches, 8 inches, 8 inches, and then I would probably just mimic the same pattern I did. There we go. But that's probably not good practice. But point B, they have now advanced 8 inches. Victory. Now before we continue, a huge shout out to my sergeants, CR, Caine, Bree W, and Michael Davenport. You guys are legends. And then we have fallback moves. When a unit falls back, each model in that unit can make a fallback move by moving a distance in inches less than or equal to its move characteristic. So far, this sounds like just a move. And when doing so, you can move it within engagement range of enemy models, provided it does not end that move within engagement range of any enemy models. Okay, there we are, back in form. If that is not possible, that unit cannot fall back. A unit cannot shoot or declare a charge in the same turn that it fell back. Yeah, so I guess if you're already within the fated engagement range of an enemy, this is indeed you falling back. Desperate escape tests. Now, this was mentioned earlier with the battle shock. Right, now we get to find out what that is. Unlike when making other types of move, models can move over enemy models when making a fallback move, as if those enemy models were not there. But you must take a desperate escape test for each model that will do so, excluding models that are titanic or can fly, before any models in that unit are moved. So for each model? Ugh, that sounds nasty. In addition, if a unit is battle shocked when it is selected to fall back, you must take a desperate escape test for every model in that unit before any are moved. Yes, indeed, as mentioned earlier. Each time you take a desperate escape test for a model, roll 1d6. For each roll of a 1 and 2, one model from the unit that is falling back is destroyed. Selected by you. The same model can only ever trigger one desperate escape test per phase. So we succeed once, then for the rest of the phase, they are just happily skipping away from everyone. So a fallback move. Models move up to their movement in inches. Units that fall back cannot shoot or declare a charge in the same turn. Models can move over enemy models when falling back, but you must take a desperate escape test for them before they do so, excluding models that are titanic or can fly. If a battle-shocked unit is selected to fall back, take a desperate escape test for every model in that unit, and then for the desperate escape test, you roll a d6. On a 1 or 2, one model from that unit is destroyed. Okay, cool, I see. Let us take a look, shall we? Alrighty, so let's say that this group of 7 intercessors is currently duking it out with Ted the Dread here, but they want to fall back. Thankfully, they are able to do that easily by simply moving their movement, in this case 6 inches, away from him. Here we go. Super accurate. Couldn't be any more accurate than this. I hope you guys enjoy my ultra accuracy. Alright, they've now moved 6 inches away from him. They've successfully fallen back. They cannot shoot or declare a charge this turn, but they've fallen back. Bravo. However, quickly put them back into place. Now let's say that they want to fall back, but however, this outrider here is harrying them, making a nuisance of himself. They still want to fall back in this direction. Okay, so they are allowed, while falling back, to pass over or through enemy models as if they weren't there, but the models that do, have to make a desperate escape test. Alright, let's see which ones have to and which ones don't. It's rather clear that the ones over here are quite fine and dandy, so we'll just move these fellas. And the sergeant, I think, yeah, just about skirts through. Okay, sergeant skirts through, just about. These two, however, will definitely have to make a desperate escape test. So, to do this, for each model that is going to do it, you have to roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, they have failed. On a 3 or higher, they have successfully passed through and fallen back. Let's see how my luck holds, shall we? Okay, fair. So we got a 4. That means 1 got through just fine. That's this lucky fella. But unfortunately, there's also a 2. So this guy, he tried to make it through, but he got cut down by this fella's chainsword, or at least he got tagged out of the drill, the firing exercise. So we've lost 1. Only 2 had to make a roll. 1 of them made it, 1 of them didn't. But still, pretty good results in my opinion. However, one last thing to show. Get these fellas back into place. I do love how this game is very much a case of what you see is what you get, you know, if you have to physically move a model through, then you have to make the roll and all that jazz, rather than any kind of metagaming in that regard. It's very cool. Right, now let's say that these guys here are battle shocked, and they have to fall back. It doesn't matter if you do or don't have to pass through this here fella. They've all got to make a desperate escape test. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all 7 of them have to make some hefty dice rolls. A 1 or a 2 is a failure. Let's see what we get. Alright then, we got a 2, we got a 2, we got a 2, we got a 1, oh dear. Okay, so out of 7, 4 did not make it. So this guy managed to, let's actually measure it, shall we? Getting all excited. So this guy managed to get away, let's say this guy managed to get away, and let's say, sorry, this guy managed to get away. But all the rest, in their attempts to escape, they just got cut down by the chainsword. Ted the Dread mowed them down, but we have lost 4 intercessors in the escape attempt. Damn, pretty brutal. So yeah, you really want to avoid being in a situation like this and getting battle shocked, ladies and gentlemen. Nice. Sorry about the annoying light from this curtain, by the way. The sun, it's evil. Moving over terrain. Warhammer 40k battlefields are strewn with a wide variety of obstacles, structures, and detritus collectively known as terrain features. When a model makes any kind of move, it can be moved over a terrain feature, but not through it. So models can't move through a wall, for example, but it can climb up or over it. What if you're a Necron Wraith? A model can be moved over terrain features that are 2 inches or less in height, as if they were not there. A model can be moved vertically in order to climb up or down any terrain features that are taller than this, counting the vertical distance up and or down as part of its move. Models cannot end any kind of move mid-climb. If it is not possible to end the move as a result, that move cannot be made. Let's check it out. Now let's say Jamman the Tech Marine here is busy looking for a tank he lost. Could it be hiding behind this heavy plastic-steel tubing? As it is less than 2 inches high, it is 1.5 inches if you're curious, he is able to move freely. So he is able to go from there straight to there without it costing him any extra movement to do so. However, if he was to climb over this wall, let's say, because the wall is 5 inches up, it would take 5 inches of his movement for him to get to the top. So 5 up, 1 forward, and now he stood on top of the wall, and hopefully from this high vantage point he can see where he lost his tank. If it was even higher, for instance if it was, let's say it was twice the height here, approaching about 10 to 11 inches, if he were to climb it he would end his move about here, and you cannot end your turn while climbing, so the move cannot be made. Makes sense. Flying! Dang, it's like the one model I don't have, I think. If a model can fly, then when it makes a normal advance or fallback move, it can be moved over enemy models as if they were not there, because it's flying over them. And it can be moved within engagement range of enemy models when making such a move? My mind is blown. Note this also means that monster and vehicle models that can fly can be moved over other monster and vehicle models when making such a move. However, models that can fly cannot end their move on top of any other models or within engagement range of any enemy models. There we go. When a model that can fly starts or ends a move on a terrain feature, instead of measuring the path it has moved across the battlefield, you can instead measure its path through the air, as shown in the diagram below. That's actually a pretty good diagram, really. The Tyranid Prime makes a normal move of 12 inches, 12 inches, damn, to end on top of the ruin. Because it can fly, it can move directly over the enemy Terminators as if they were not there, and it is the diagonal distance through the air that is measured. I don't think I need to demonstrate that, because I think that diagram does a pretty good job. Right, step 2 of the movement phase, reinforcements. Some units have a rule that allows them to start the battle in reserves, such as Deep Strike. I'm going to assume this is like Terminators teleporting. Such units will arrive later in the battle and are known as reserves units. Any reserves units that have not been set up on the battlefield when the battle ends count as having been destroyed? Dude, that's so harsh. That would be like if you have some troops in reserve at home and then the war ends, you just execute them because they never went to war. That's so dumb. In the reinforcements step of your movement phase, if you have any reserves units in your army, you can select one or more of them and set them up on the battlefield, one at a time. Once all your reserves units that you wish to set up this turn have been set up, your movement phase ends and you progress to your shooting phase. Okay, straightforward. Details of how to set up reserves units are described in the same rules that enable the unit to set up in reserves. I assume that'll be on the datasheet or something. These rules will typically specify a distance away from all enemy models. Whenever such a distance is specified, it always applies to the horizontal distance, even though normally you measure to and from the closest part of a model's base. Alright. Reserve units always count as having made a normal move in the turn that they are set up on the battlefield, and so cannot move further during the phase, but otherwise units set up in this way can act normally, so they can shoot, declare a charge, and fight, etc. Okay, cool, so they can immediately jump right in and just start going guns blazing. Nice. So, in summary, a reserves unit is a unit that starts the battle in a location other than the battlefield, always count as having made a normal move in the turn that they are set up on the battlefield, any specified distance from enemy models applies to horizontal distance, and any reserves units not set up on the battlefield by the end of the battle counts as destroyed. Counts as destroyed. They're not actually destroyed, but it's just so weird to me. Alright, let's have a look at that. Alright, so here we are in the movement phase. Ted the Dread is facing down in a combat drill against this, what is left of an intercessor squad. So they spend their movement phase to just run behind this heavy plastic-steel tubing. And while Ted is thinking, I have you now, the reinforcement stage comes in, and I know this unit probably couldn't normally do this, but... Boom! Charlie Chaplin just teleports out of nowhere on his bike, screaming and swinging in his rhythm stick, ready to pop some sick wheelies off of that, but not on this turn, ladies and gentlemen. On the next turn. Only this turn, he can shoot and charge and things like that. Right into Ted's rear. Thanks, Charlie. You're such a pal. But yes, normally it would be something like Terminators or something that can actually just teleport in. But there may be other ways for reserve units to enter the battlefield. Maybe they can just come in from the side. I don't know. We'll find out later, I'm sure. Transports. Some units can carry others across the battlefield, providing their passengers with greater speed and protection as they are ferried to the front lines or towards vital objectives. This is very much Captain Leon von Grit's domain with mechanized infantry and whatnot. So some models have the transport keyword. The following rules describe how units can embark within and disembark from such models, and how they are used to move these passengers across the battlefield. Does my Repulsor Executioner have transport? It does! Has a transport capacity of 6 Adeptus Astartes infantry models. We can do it, we can demonstrate this, and it will still remain within game rules. Yes! Where were we? Oh yes. Transport capacity. All transport models have a transport capacity listed on their datasheet. This determines the type and maximum number of friendly models that can embark within them. Indeed, we've just seen this. Units can start the battle embarked within a transport model instead of being set up separately. Oh, cool! Declare which units are embarked within a transport model before you set it up. Nice, so I can have some infantry just already in my executioner right at the very start. That's good to know. Right, embark. If a unit makes a normal, advance, or fallback move, and every model in that unit ends that move within 3 inches of a friendly transport model, they can embark within it. A unit cannot embark if it has already disembarked from a transport model in the same phase. Exactly, you don't want to be a transport slut or nothing. Remove the unit from the battlefield and place it to one side. It is now embarked within that transport model. Unless otherwise stated, units cannot do anything or be affected in any way while they are embarked. Damn, that makes it sound way more indestructible than it actually is, I imagine. So, a unit can embark within a friendly transport if all of its models end a normal advance or fallback move within 3 inches of that transport. Oh cool, so to clarify, you can advance and still embark on the same turn. Cool. And a unit cannot embark and disembark in the same phase. Disembark. If a unit from your army starts your movement phase embarks within a transport model, that unit can disembark in that phase. When a unit disembarks from a transport model, set it up on the battlefield so that it is wholly within 3 inches of that transport model and not within engagement range of any enemy models. If, for any reason, a disembarking model cannot be set up, that model's unit cannot disembark. So basically, if there's no room to get out, you ain't getting out. So make sure you park in the parking space squarely in the middle. Units that disembark from a transport that either remained stationary this phase or has not yet made a normal advance or fallback move this phase can then act normally, so they can make a normal move, advance, shoot, declare a charge, and fight, etc. in the remainder of the turn. Such a disembarking unit cannot choose to remain stationary. That makes sense, I suppose, because you have left the vehicle. You have to move to leave things. Units that disembark from a transport model that made a normal move this phase count as having made a normal move themselves. They cannot move further during this phase. Such a unit also cannot declare a charge in the same turn, but can otherwise act normally in the remainder of the turn. Okay, so the transport is moved, they get out, they can still shoot, but not much more. Units cannot disembark from a transport model that either advanced or fell back this turn. Okay, fair, it's going at such a high speed, you can't just bail out. That's movie shit right there. So, in summary, units that start your movement phase embarked within a transport can disembark this phase, provided their transport has not advanced or fallen back. If a unit disembarks before its transport moves, it can act normally. If a unit disembarks after its transport moves, it cannot move or charge this turn, but can otherwise act normally. Disembarking units must be set up wholly within 3 inches of their transport and not within engagement range of any enemy models, or the unit cannot disembark. Units that disembark this turn cannot remain stationary. Okay then, so this small squad of intercessors has been sent away from the rest of the battle group in order to pick up some milk from the corner shop. Now it's a far trek even for these boys, but thankfully for them, they have this here Repulsor Executioner to get them there in no short order. Now they have to be within 3 inches, okie dokie, that's 3 inches, so they move within, which is very much within range. Excellent, they're now within 3 inches and they all pile on in, so I set them off to one side. Excellent, they are now embarked within the Primaris Repulsor Executioner, meaning this can now move all the way over towards where the corner shop is, to the corner shop. There. Let's say it's here. Now, they cannot disembark this turn, however, so let's say that some time has passed. It is now the next round, and now their turn has come about. So the tank has remained stationary, meaning these fellows can disembark anywhere within 3 inches of the model. I'll leave that there for sort of reference for myself. Right, they've now all disembarked out of the side door there, and they are able to make their usual 6-inch move over here to Luke Skywalker's Green Milk Dairy. The best in the galaxy, don't you know? Or alternatively, the tank itself could have moved on this turn right up to the dairy, and then the intercessors could have got out. Now, because the tank has performed a normal move this turn, after these intercessors have disembarked, they cannot make a normal move or a charge, but they can do other normal things, such as shoot or pick up milk. Excellent. Alright then, and now, destroyed transports. If a transport model is destroyed, any units embarked within that transport model must immediately disembark before that transport model is removed from the battlefield. Okay, so we get a chance to bail out. That's decent. I was expecting to say that they all crash and burn. Units that disembark from a destroyed transport model are not affected by that model's deadly demise ability, whatever that is. Instead, you must roll 1d6 for each disembarking model. For each roll of 1, that disembarking model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. That sounds really grim. In addition, if a unit disembarks from a destroyed transport model until the start of its controlling player's next command phase, that unit is battle shocked. Oh, okay, this just got a lot worse. Until the end of the next turn, that unit counts as having made a normal move this turn and cannot declare a charge. Oh, okay, I take it back. This is pretty grim. So, in summary, if a transport is destroyed, any embarked units must disembark. Roll 1d6 for each model that disembarks. For each 1, that model's unit suffers 1 mortal wound. I'm very eager to find out what a mortal wound is. Until the start of its controlling player's next command phase, the disembarking unit is battle shocked, and until the end of the turn, the disembarking unit counts as having made a normal move and cannot declare a charge. Yeah, that's pretty rough. But it looks like it gets rougher. Emergency disembarkation. Now we're busting out the big words. If a transport model is destroyed and it is not possible to set up a disembarking unit wholly within 3 inches of that transport model and not within engagement range of any enemy models, that unit must instead perform an emergency disembarkation. This is performed as described for disembarking from a destroyed transport model, except that a unit that does so must be set up wholly within 6 inches of the destroyed transport model instead of wholly within 3. Okay, fairs. And not within engagement range of any enemy models. And when rolling for each disembarking model, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound for each roll of 1 to 3 instead of each roll for 1. Oh god. If, for any reason, a disembarking model still cannot be set up, that model is destroyed. Damn. Don't want to be in a tank when it blows up. So, in summary, units disembarking a destroyed transport that cannot be set up wholly within 3 inches of it must perform an emergency disembarkation. So units, not just a model, like the one model that can't. The whole unit then suffers for it. So it must be set up wholly within 6 inches of it instead of wholly within 3 inches. Suffer 1 mortal wound for each roll of 1 to 3 instead of each roll of 1. And any disembarking model that cannot be set up is destroyed. Yeah. Let's try it. Alright, so let's say that on the way to the dairy, Ted the Dread here shows up and just utterly destroys this tank in a single turn with a onslaught Gatling cannon, somehow. So the 6 guys here all disembark, and for each model, we must roll a d6. We got a 1. That means the unit has suffered 1 mortal wound. I'm going to skip ahead a bit, find out what a mortal wound is. Mortal wounds. Some attacks are so powerful that no armor or force field can withstand their fury. Oh god. Some attacks inflict mortal wounds. Each mortal wound inflicts 1 point of damage on the target unit, and they are always applied 1 at a time. Do not make a wound roll or saving throw, including invulnerable saving throws, against a mortal wound. You just allocate it as you would any other attack and inflict damage to a model in the target unit as described on the right. Okay, cool. I won't read any further into it. Don't want to spoil too much. But basically, one of these poor fools has taken damage. I don't know how much damage they can take, but I would assume it's going to be a mortal wound, and thus they will be dead. I'm going to assume that this fellow is now dead. That sucks. But hey, things could be worse. I will show you. Let's say that they were at the dairy, and they were about to leave. They were about to pull out of their very tight parking space, when suddenly Ted the Dread shows up, and instantly nukes it with his onslaught Gatling cannon somehow that we don't know how. Now, all of a sudden, all 6 of these guys need to disembark, but they cannot all get out within 3 inches. There's just not enough room for them all. There probably is in this example, but we will say this guy just simply cannot. Meaning, there must now be an emergency disembarkation. So this now means anywhere within 6 inches, so yes, now there is room for all of them, and now we must roll the dice for all of them, but it's a mortal wound for every 1 to 3, not just every 1, so this is pretty grim. Oh dear. Alright, we'll be quicker to count how many didn't get it. So 2 were not. So that's 4 mortal wounds. Again, I'm going to assume that that's 4 deaths. Oh dear, so that's definitely a lot less milk coming back to the chapter now. Yeah, and this thing is dead as well, on top of that. Ted the Dread's having a very damn productive day. So yeah, avoid emergency disembarkation, kids. It's bad. Alright, excellent. So that concludes the movement phase, which consists, of course, of moving the units and setting up the reinforcements. It's very exciting. But I feel we'll end this first part here. We have learnt about some of the core concepts and about the command phase and the movement phase. It's very exciting. I'm very excited to learn more. Next will be the shooting phase, which we shall see next time. So I do hope you guys found this useful, so please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And then we could make more together as a result. And I will see you next time for the next part of how to play Warhammer 40k, where we may learn it together. And do remember, the Emperor is always guiding your brush.